Imagine you're walking through a forest and you cut your leg on a sharp rock. No pharmacy nearby, no hospital, no doctor, just you, the wound, and whatever your body already knows how to do. Now here's the strange part. This wasn't a rare situation in human history. This was the normal condition of almost every human who has ever lived. For roughly 300,000 years, our species existed without a single pharmacy. Modern medicine, the kind with antibiotics, surgery, painkillers, has existed for less than 200 years, which means for 99.9% of human history, people got sick, got hurt, got old, and somehow survived anyway. So the question we're actually asking today is not how did they survive without medicine? The real question is, what did they have instead? And the answer turns out to be far more sophisticated than we usually give it credit for. Let's start with something you already own, something you've never once had to buy: pain. We treat pain like an enemy, something to silence as fast as possible. But pain is not a malfunction. Pain is a message. It is one of the oldest alarm systems in the animal kingdom. When you step on something sharp, pain forces you to stop, to protect the area, to rest it. Without pain, an ancient hunter would keep walking on a broken foot until it destroyed him completely. Pain is not the absence of medicine. Pain is the first doctor you ever had. And it's not the only one built into your body. There's a second ancient mechanism, one that seems even more counterintuitive: fever. For centuries, fever looked like the disease itself, something dangerous, something to cool down immediately. But researchers studying immune response found something remarkable. A slightly elevated body temperature makes it dramatically harder for many bacteria and viruses to reproduce. Fever is not your body losing control. Fever is your body turning up the heat on purpose. It's an internal weapon evolved over millions of years, deployed automatically, with zero prescription required. And this is where the story starts to get interesting, because the body wasn't working alone. Here's the first hint that something deeper was going on. In 1957, archaeologists in Iraq uncovered a 60,000-year-old skeleton in a place called Shanidar Cave. This man, known as Shanidar I, was blind in one eye, missing part of an arm, and severely disabled. And yet, the evidence showed he lived for years after these injuries. A disabled Neanderthal, in a world of predators and scarce food, survived long after he should have died. There is only one explanation: someone fed him, someone protected him, someone kept him alive. Care wasn't an accident of prehistoric life. Care was a survival technology. Long before plants, long before rituals, long before any remedy, the first medicine was other people. But of course, our ancestors didn't stop there, because the world around them was, quietly, an enormous pharmacy. At that same Shanidar Cave, pollen analysis revealed something else: traces of medicinal plants, yarrow, chamomile-like flowers, plants still recognized today for anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. Some researchers argue these were deliberately gathered and used for healing, tens of thousands of years before writing existed. And this pattern repeats everywhere, across every continent, every culture, long before recorded history. Willow bark, chewed for pain relief, contains a compound called salicin. Your body converts it into salicylic acid, the same active compound found in modern aspirin. Ancient people didn't know the chemistry, but across thousands of years of trial and error, they found the same molecule modern labs would later isolate. This wasn't luck. This was accumulated knowledge, passed down for generations. Knowledge became one of the most valuable resources a group could have. In every ancient society, there was someone who remembered. Which plant stopped bleeding? Which one calmed a fever? Which one was deadly poison? This person was often the oldest member of the group, which reveals something surprising about why elders were protected so fiercely. An elder wasn't just a grandparent. An elder was a walking, living medical archive. Lose that person, and the group could lose decades of irreplaceable survival knowledge in a single death. This is why, across nearly every early human culture, caring for the old wasn't just kindness. It was, quite literally, healthcare infrastructure. But knowledge and care could only go so far, because ancient people also had to deal with something far more dangerous than any single wound: disease that spreads. And here's where our ancestors discovered something that still saves lives today: isolation. Anthropological studies of small-scale societies found a consistent pattern. Sick individuals were often moved away from the group temporarily until they recovered, not out of cruelty, out of an intuitive, unspoken understanding. Whatever is happening to this person might spread to everyone else. Quarantine wasn't invented in a modern laboratory. It was invented by observation, repeated across thousands of years, long before anyone understood germs. There's also a much older instinct at work here, one you still carry inside you right now. Disgust. That wave of revulsion you feel toward rotting food, open wounds, or foul smells isn't random. Psychologists studying disgust call it the behavioral immune system. It exists to make you avoid things that historically carried parasites, bacteria, and infection before your actual immune system ever has to fight them. In other words, your body built a second layer of defense that operates entirely through emotion. Long before any doctor existed, disgust was already screening your environment for danger. And this brings us to something even more physical: grooming. We tend to picture this as something only monkeys do. But early humans groomed each other constantly, removing lice, checking wounds, cleaning dirt from skin, all of it done by hand, by someone who cared about you. Researchers studying primate behavior note that grooming does more than clean the body. It builds trust, strengthens bonds, and reduces stress hormones, which means physically caring for someone's body was never separate from caring for the group's survival. It was the same act. Now let's put all of these pieces together and look at what they add up to. Pain that forces rest, fever that fights infection, disgust that avoids danger before it starts, plants that reduce inflammation, elders who remember which ones, groups that isolate the sick and groom the healthy. None of this was medicine in the way we define it today, but together it formed something remarkably close to an actual healthcare system, built not in a hospital but distributed across instinct, behavior, plants, and relationships. And here's the detail that changes how you should think about all of this. None of these tools worked well in isolation. Not a single one. Pain only helps if someone lets you rest instead of forcing you to keep working. Plant knowledge only helps if it's passed down by someone who survives long enough to teach it. Quarantine only works if a group exists in the first place, one willing to bring you food while you recover, which means the true foundation underneath all of it was never really biology. It was belonging. A person alone in the wilderness, injured, had almost no chance. A person injured inside a group had every tool humanity had developed working in his favor. This is the hidden mechanism behind ancient survival. Not a single remedy, but a network. And that network had a cost. If you were cast out, exiled, or abandoned, none of it applied to you anymore. In small-scale societies studied by anthropologists, exile was often treated as equivalent to a death sentence, not because of predators alone, but because every layer of protection depended entirely on other people choosing to keep you close. Let's go back to Shanidar Cave one more time. Imagine the actual scene. 60,000 years ago, a man, blind in one eye, unable to use one arm properly. In any purely biological sense, he should not have survived a single hard winter, and yet someone brought him food, day after day, for years. Someone walked slower so he could keep up. Someone chewed his food softer so he could eat it. There was no ceremony to this, no dramatic announcement, just quiet, repeated choice, day after day. That repeated choice is, in the truest sense, the oldest medicine humanity has ever practiced. Now, let's bring this back to today. We live surrounded by extraordinary modern medicine, vaccines, surgery, antibiotics, imaging machines that can see inside a living body. And yet, researchers studying health outcomes keep finding something uncomfortable. Chronic loneliness is associated with serious health risks. People with strong social connections recover faster from illness, live longer, and handle stress with far less physical damage to the body. In other words, the ancient mechanism never actually disappeared. We just built pills and machines on top of it and slowly forgot it was there. Every hospital visit still contains a distant echo of that Neanderthal fire. Someone checking on you, someone bringing you food, someone simply choosing not to leave you alone. The medicine changed. The underlying need never did. Let's return to where we started. You, alone, injured in a forest with no pharmacy in sight. Now imagine the same scene, but with people nearby, people who notice, people who stop what they're doing to help. Suddenly, the entire situation changes, not because medicine appeared, but because people did. That, in the end, is how ancient humans survived without medicine for hundreds of thousands of years. Not with a single miracle cure, but with pain that warned them, fever that fought for them, plants that helped them, elders who remembered, and groups who simply refused to let each other die alone. Every pill you've ever taken exists because someone, somewhere, first survived long enough without one to figure out what worked. And every hospital bed you'll ever lie in still runs on the same ancient principle it always did. You were never meant to heal completely alone. Somewhere behind every antibiotic, every stitch, every quiet act of care, there's a fire still burning, tens of thousands of years old.